Where do I start? Peep this, fam. Donald Trump, won this election. And not only did he win, but he won big this time. And I want to explain why. Number one, Donald Trump this time around won the popular vote and the electoral college. It was different in 2016 because he won the electoral college, but liberals could sit back and say, but Hillary won the popular vote. So more people wanted Hillary Clinton. Now you can't say that. This time around, you just can't. This time around, you can't say that because he won the popular vote. So liberals now are really angry. I feel like people are more angry now than they were when Hillary lost. I think they're more angry this time around because Donald Trump won again. It's like at this point in the game, it's almost kind of like Donald Trump is herpes. It's like he went away for a little bit, like he won in 2016. So it's like he was present, he was there, and then he lost in 2020. So he went away for like a couple of years, but now I came back, now he's back. So in that sense, I feel like the anger is worse this time around, especially what I've seen online. I don't know, Danny. Danny said simplex 1 or simplex 2. I guess in this case, simplex 2. But he's back. Kapow! He's back. And this time he won, again, like I said, bigger than he did before. So not only did he win the popular vote and the electoral college, but he also managed to establish a realignment with certain demographic groups. And that also pisses off the Democratic Party and also liberals who are losing it, literally losing it online. And they are pointing fingers at Latino voters. They are calling them racist, slurs. Yes, I told you, ladies and gentlemen, that liberals can be racist too. But then there's something else. We all got to remember Kamala Harris raised more money than Donald Trump did. Now, typically, that's who would win. That's usually how these elections work. Most of the time, the candidate that has the most money is the one that is able to win because they can put out more ads. They can have more promotions. I mean, she had celebrities at a lot of these rallies and he still managed to win. And I want to get into this clip here. This is from James Lee. I believe James Lee is a contributor to Breaking Points. Check this out. He has a really good point.
No matter who you are, I think Trump winning is great for electoral politics in America. As y'all know, I always try to follow the money, and it has consistently been fact that if you raise the most money, you're gonna win. And of course, that winning comes with certain strings attached. Well, just look how much more money Kamala raised than Trump. She raised over $1 billion. $1 billion! Compared to $380 million for Donald Trump. Kamala HQ over the past few months, how many times have you guys seen posts like this where they're just bragging about the hundreds of millions of dollars that they've raised? This is a text I got on election day from Barack Obama, and the message was not to go vote, but to donate more money to the Democrats. Also, I don't know why they keep doing this. It's from Barack Obama. We know it's not Barack Obama. Come on, it's some intern or it's a bot. We're not stupid. But anyway, this is insane. And it kind of makes you wonder whether or not they were even trying to win at all. But yeah, Trump just gave us a blueprint. He demonstrated that, sure, yeah, you need a little bit of money to run a campaign, but fundraising for the sake of fundraising is not how you win anymore.
And that makes an interesting point that I want to say, because he has basically kind of in a way turned the page here, because Donald Trump has now proven that, hey, the candidate with the least amount of money can still win. And he's a billionaire, don't get me wrong. It's not like he's hurting for any money. But I think he kind of proved something here. I mean, if you're looking at the data and if you're thinking about history, it would make sense that Kamala Harris would win because she had the most money. Not only that, look at all the celebrities that came out to stand with her and endorse her. And it was nonstop, like Kamala. I saw Kamala ads like left and right, like just nonstop Kamala promotion. For the most part, like CNN, MSNBC, all these people were behind her. It was all over social media. Everybody was like joy and coconuts and all that jazz. And she still lost. She still lost. And there was something that James Lee said there that really made me think. It was almost like they weren't really trying to win. And you can do with that whatever you want, but that's something I've wondered too. Remember, Barack Obama did not want Kamala Harris to be handed the nomination. When it was called for Joe Biden to step down, Barack Obama was the one to abstain at first in choosing Kamala Harris and said there should be an open primary. Joe Biden didn't like being pushed out. Joe Biden also didn't like being told what to do, I guess, by Barack Obama at that point. And so Joe Biden decided to jump the gun and say, that's it, I nominate Kamala Harris. It really makes you wonder, especially when you look at the turnout. Now, this is something else I want to mention too. Donald Trump won the popular vote, but Donald Trump received less votes this time around than he did in 2020. And this is why I continue to say a strong candidate could have beaten him. A strong one, not a weak one. Look at the turnout. You got to see this. Shout out to Radical Nation. Restoring faith in America. There are over 18.6 million quiet heroes in America today. That is 12% of 2020 voters who walked away from the duopoly. They voted Green or Socialist or Libertarian, but mostly stayed home. Almost 19% of Democrats, nearly 1 in 5 who turned out in 2020 to defeat Donald Trump, stayed home instead. 4.4% of Republicans stayed home as well. But Democrats walked away at a rate of 5-1 when compared to Republicans. And you guys can see what that looks like here. When we look at the stats here at the bottom, you can see in 2020, down here at the bottom left-hand corner, it shows Biden here, and Joe Biden received over 81 million votes, 81.2 million votes at that point in time. Donald Trump received over 74 million votes at that point in time. But if you fast forward to 2024, what you'll see is that Kamala Harris received 65.8 million votes. So that's a significant difference from what Joe Biden received, right? We got 81.2 million, 65.8 million. That's a big difference. But Donald Trump also received less turnout. This time around, he received 70.9 million. 2020, he received 74.2 million and he lost. Now, there's a couple of factors that can go into this. 2020 was the pandemic. I think more people were angry at that point in time because of everything that was around us during the pandemic, the lockdowns. There was that. People were angry about that. People were angry about the economy, businesses closing, et cetera. And usually when people are upset about the economy, they choose to vote against the incumbent, right? But Donald Trump still received 74.2 million votes. So he received less votes this time around, but he still won the popular vote because Kamala Harris was not able to get to the amount that Joe Biden received. And then some of us would argue maybe Joe Biden received those amounts because a lot of people were at home. Remember what was happening during that time? I'm in Massachusetts. My state was locked down. I didn't really have much going on. Okay. It wasn't much going on here. I was working from home permanently at that point in time. We didn't know how long that was going to last, but it lasted for over a year. So there's that. So people, I think, were in a space where they were paying more attention to what was happening with electoral politics. So it doesn't necessarily mean that Joe Biden was a great candidate. Everyone, please understand that, because that is not what I'm saying. But what it does mean is, given what was happening at that time with the pandemic, businesses closing, people losing their jobs because of the lockdowns, et cetera, people were like, it's time to turn the page to someone else. So maybe that's why more people participated in 2020. Either way, voters who stayed home, we are looking at, with the Democrats, they lost 15.3 million voters who either voted third party or stayed home. And then when you look at the Republicans, 3.2 million stayed home, right? So we got 18.94% versus 4.39%. What that shows you is that at the end of the day, the Republican voters came out to vote. Yes, Less of them showed up than in 2020, but not as few as for the Democratic Party. So that says something as well. And then also, altogether, we're looking at 18.6 million people who decided either not to vote for the duopoly or stayed home, etc. And he still won. So I think, and just keep in mind as well, too, like these were the numbers at that time, but let's be real. Kamala Harris, 65.8 million. She's not going to get to 81.2 million. Not at this point in time. The states that they're still working on is Nevada and Arizona. And I think Nevada is almost done. I checked earlier today. I think they were at 91% or something like that. So just keep that in mind. So it really makes you wonder. So we have to get to this question. What happened? I want to dive into this article here called What Just Happened? Making Sense of Democrats' Blowout Loss. And there's something here that happened with Donald Trump that I do want to highlight. We got to get into this discussion about the realignment, because at the end of the day, I think the Democratic Party has been taking certain demographics for granted. I told you before how they treat Black voters, but it's apparent with these numbers that Latino voters were also feeling some kind of way. So when we get to this part right about here, remember the whole Puerto Rico comments? Remember this? Nor was anger over pro-Trump's comic insult about Puerto Rico enough to help Harris in Northampton, Berks, and Lehigh counties, which has some of the state's largest Puerto Rican communities. So this is interesting. And I think this is also why Democrats may be really upset. I think they really thought that those comments that were said by Tony at Trump's Madison Square Garden event were really going to be enough to mobilize and excite Puerto Rican Americans to come out and vote for Kamala Harris. But it didn't actually turn out that way. And as I predicted, I said that may energize some people, but I don't think that's going to energize the majority of them to come out and support Kamala Harris. You know what I mean? So that did not work in their favor. Then on top of that, Latino voters moved heavily over towards Donald Trump. So it's like the Latino community's response to the Democratic Party for criticizing the comedian. It's like their response was, okay, we're going to go support Trump. And I don't think the Democratic Party can figure this out. Deneen said 15 million Democrat voters voted Couch 2024. Black grassroots strikes again. There you go. And Judd says nobody cares about words anymore. It won't. Action results. Yeah, I just don't think they realized that was probably not going to work for them. But this part here is very important. Look at this. Finally, in blue states, Harris carried. Trump made eye-popping inroads. Trump got about 47% of the vote in New Jersey after receiving 41% there in 2020. In New York, he reduced his loss margin from 23 points in 2020 to 11 points on Tuesday. Guys, this is significant. And in Illinois, the third largest blue state after California and New York, he lost by 8 points, a major improvement over his 17-point defeat in 2020. And this is how he was able to win the popular vote, because he made gains in blue states. He won, I think counties. I have to double check. Districts. He won districts that Joe Biden won. So he was able to come in and flip Biden districts. You really have to have a bad candidate for this to happen. And this is what I told you guys before about Kamala Harris. And I also think the Democratic Party, in a way, I think they were underestimating Donald Trump. And with the comments about, oh, he's a felon. Why would you vote for a felon? We can't have a felon in the White House. And the overuse of that word felon, like I told people, I'm like, that's going to rub some groups the wrong way. But, they didn't want to listen to me. But I think they underestimated him in the beginning. They're like, oh, this is ridiculous. People aren't going to be willing to vote for him again, a third time. But apparently, some groups were willing to flip to him. Check this out from Niall. This exit poll data is wild. White men, white women, black men, black women, Latino women, all tracking their 2020 numbers very closely. Latino men in 2020, they went 59% for Biden and 36% for Trump. Latino men in 2024, 45% for Harris and 53% for Donald Trump. This is a huge shift from Democrat plus 23 to Republican plus 28. And why do you think that is, ladies and gentlemen? Why do you think more Latinos voted for Donald Trump this time around? My guess probably says immigration. That's my guess if I had to make a guess. And I want to show you something that happened in Wisconsin as well. This is very interesting because it's not just Latino. Look at this. So in 2016, we're going to compare 2016 because also Donald Trump's running mate was a female. I want to prove a point. 2016 exit polls for Wisconsin. Donald Trump received, when we're looking at the racial demographics here, he received 6% of the black vote in Wisconsin. 6%. Okay. Hillary Clinton received 92%, which is what we're used to seeing, right? And then when it comes to race and gender, Donald Trump received 8% of the black male vote. Hillary Clinton received 90%. However, when we fast forward to 2024, let's go to Wisconsin. I want to show you something. What has changed? This time around in Wisconsin, Donald Trump received 22% of the black vote. I'm going to say this again. In 2024, Donald Trump received 22% of the black vote in Wisconsin. Now, most Black Americans in Wisconsin live in Milwaukee. And another thing that I was reading about as well was that for whatever reason, Milwaukee did not show up for Kamala Harris that way. Now, I don't know if that means she just didn't campaign enough there. I know she was campaigning in Wisconsin, but they did not show up for her the way they did for Joe Biden. And then when we look at sex by race, oh, they don't have that one yet for the black men. Oh, they don't have the black men one yet. But for black people in Wisconsin, 22%. 22% compared to where he was in 2016. And he received 6%. So that's a big difference. And it's a swing state. So something happened with Kamala Harris's campaign in Milwaukee. I don't know what else to tell you. But now there's more. Because when we look at the exit polls for 2016 for the national race, we'll see something else too. I just want to make a point. In the national race, Donald Trump received 8% of the vote from black people. So 8% of the black vote, Donald Trump, 2016. Hillary Clinton, 89%. Right? Now that doesn't sound alarming, right, guys? But in 2024, let's see how he did this time around. This is the part that's really interesting. Let me make sure I'm on the national one. Yeah, okay. In 2024, when it comes to the black vote, Donald Trump received 13% of the black vote. So was there this huge gain for Donald Trump with black voters, like across the board, like 25, 35%? Nationally, no, but he did increase it. He went from 8% to 13%. He's Republican. We don't usually see that. And if you look at some of the swing states, if you look at states like Georgia, if you look at some of these other states, you'll also see, in fact, let's see if we can look at Georgia real quick. I just want to check something. Because something that I noticed is that he did make other gains with Black voters in other states. Why does this go all the way to the bottom? NBC, I'm gonna need you to do better. Okay, can you do better? Thank you. Okay, in Georgia, this time around, Donald Trump received 12% of the Black vote. When I look at sex by race, Donald Trump received 16% of the Black male vote. These are all improvements. So again, there was something about him and his campaign in particular that did attract demographics that usually would vote Democrat. So no, it's not like he got this large margin, but he increased it. Now, when we look at Latino, and actually we'll go back to the national one here. Where did I go? I don't know why it's doing this. Okay. Okay. When we look at the national demographics, right? For Latino, Donald Trump, 46% Latino went to Donald Trump. 46%. And then if we look at sex by race, we will see he received 55% of the Latino male vote. It's right here. I hope you guys can see my cursor. 55% of the Latino male vote. 38% of the Latino woman vote. And then all other races, which I'm assuming is that must include those who are biracial, those who are indigenous, but all other races outside of white, Black, Latino, 46%. Guys, we don't usually see this. I think the last Republican president that I remember that did well with the Latino community was George W. Bush. And I don't even know if he had those numbers. So this says something. And the Democratic Party, and I have to say this as well. David said Sabby forgot Asian as the other. I thought they listed Asian. Did they not list Asian Americans here? Did they not list Asian? Oh, okay. I see what they did. They listed Asian up here, but they did not list Asian when they went to sex by race. Thank you for that, Danny. You're right. All of the races Asian as well. But this says something, and the Democratic Party needs to figure some things out. Because you can sit back here and you can point fingers at the Latinos who decided to vote for Donald Trump all you want to, but that says less about those voters and more about your party. What would make them want to opt away from the Democrats that they've historically been voting for? And I say, there are some Latinos that are conservative, but why is Donald Trump getting those gains? And I would say, number one is immigration. There seems to be this belief with a lot of people that if someone immigrated to this country, then they're going to be more willing and more open to, migrants coming in or people not being able to come here the legal way, the way that they did, right? That's actually not the case. When I've spoken to people that have immigrated to this country, particularly Latino Americans, they actually are not happy about that. Most of them will tell you like, no, that's not fair. I had to go through a process. How come they don't have to go through a process? So the border, I think that's a big issue. And then also probably the economy. These are big things. Like, and I can tell people over and over again, I don't know how many times I have to say this to people over and over again, but the reality is there is something about him that people do like. And the fact that if anything, after everything that has happened with Donald Trump and the Democratic Party, if anything, he shouldn't have made gains with those groups. If the Biden-Harris administration had done such a great job, he shouldn't have made those gains. That's the point I want to get across to people. The reason why he was able to make those gains is because the Biden-Harris administration did not do a good job. People have to wake up to this. And I think that the Democratic Party needs to wake up to this as well. And then there's this. There is a shift with the Republican Party when it comes to war. And listen to the way they discuss this. This is hilarious. Shout out to Case Study QB who clipped a ton of clips. Case Study clipped a ton of clips over the past week. Listen to this.
I think if you are trying to find a single reason why Donald Trump has overperformed with younger voters relative to past elections for Republicans, I think the divide I see in polls around foreign policy and the role of America in the world is no longer a left-right divide. It is a younger, older divide. If you are under the age of 40, you don't remember a time when America projecting its power in the world led to anything good. And so Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, when they get up and they talk about, warmongers, and they sound like they're Code Pink people from 2004, we've had a complete inversion of the way we talk about America in the world, the use of the military, et cetera. It's totally a generational divide, and the parties have completely flipped.
Well, just one small thing to add to that. I was really struck at the Madison Square Garden rally. You had the Republican crowd cheering for people criticizing the Patriot Act and criticizing the Iraq War, which the RNC had been held at Madison Square Garden just 20 years before.
I think
so. That is really interesting there. Also, it's interesting the way that they talk about war. There's like, well, the parties have flipped. Like, well, you really shouldn't be out there promoting war anyway. So there's that. But that is another reality. Now, again, I still don't consider Trump to be anti-war, especially considering some of the things that he said around Gaza. But I will say under his presidency, he didn't start new wars, but he did, continued to bomb Syria just like Obama did. He implemented coups in Venezuela. So we can't pretend like those things did not happen. But I think what is happening when it comes to the war rhetoric is what people are hearing from him is this war with Russia and Ukraine would have never happened. This situation, the genocide, all this stuff that's taking place in the Middle East would have never happened if I was still president. And that's what people hear, like when he says those things. So that's another thing. I think that's another reason why he may have done well this time. This time he got the popular vote and the electoral college. People are tired of the wars. People are tired of tax dollars going to, people are done and tired of that. So the Republican Party has changed. The Republican Party has now basically become the Trump Party. We saw this with Nikki Haley, guys. Nikki Haley was not able to do well in the GOP primary. A lot of the votes that Nikki Haley got came from independents, not from registered Republicans. So the Republican Party has changed. The Republican Party that I grew up knowing was like the George Bush and the George W. Bush Republican Party. And that's not the way it is anymore post Donald Trump. So Donald Trump was actually able to change the Republican Party and get it to bend to his will. Isn't this exactly what we wanted the Democrats to do? The Justice Democrats? Isn't this exactly what we wanted AOC and Cori Bush and Bernie Sanders and all of them to do to the Democratic Party? Isn't this what, didn't we ask them to go in there and have a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party? And it didn't happen. And then there's just this reality. Kamala Harris was not a strong candidate. Not a strong candidate.
Let's be honest. Harris was not a strong candidate. She just wasn't.
Now you tell us.
You
didn't tell us that last week.
Did I? Well, wait. I wasn't here last week.
The week before.
I think we've talked for a long time on this broadcast about how difficult it is.
We put a lot of lipstick on that candidate. I mean, that's a bad expression to use in this case. But we dressed her up. The mainstream media.
Just being straight here, did I expect a sweeping victory like this from Trump? No, I didn't. I thought it was going to be extremely close. Mm-hmm. Now that you see the magnitude of the victory, you cannot conclude anything else.
Well, I agree.
That she was a
I've always thought
candidate.
that.
Honestly speaking, 2 days ago, I would have said she's a really reasonably good candidate.
How? You've seen her word salad. You've seen her not answer questions. We had no idea what she stood for.
Well, in any event, I think we can make a judgment now that she wasn't a strong candidate.
I don't think you need hindsight.
And
you could have seen that coming.
And I think we all knew that, right? Like we knew she wasn't a strong candidate. And she's done this before. Like she's ran for president before. It's not like this is a new thing. But the Democratic Party needs to go back to the drawing board and they need to figure some things out because the reality is your party's dying. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.